Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Spoiler Warning, this time on a good old-fashioned Monday, where today our focus is going to be on trying to make sense of all of the different reports about Sasha Banks. And my word, there are so many different reports about Sasha Banks, some of which agree with each other, some of which don't agree with each other, but say, well, it might be true that this one's true, and it might be true that this one's not true, which aren't really reports, but are still somehow made headlines. And then you've got the ones saying, yeah, no idea, no idea what they're talking about, but this is true, which doesn't actually have anything to do. It's a mess. It is a mess. Just a massive, unbelievable mess that we're going to try and make some sense of. So the question on everyone's lips, the question on my lips, the question on the show's lips is going to be, where is Sasha Banks? So if that's of interest to you, remember to hit like, give us some thumbs ups, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're on a mission to reach 1,200 subscribers, and we have done so. As of Friday, we are on 1,204, which I'm very, very happy about. Now, we do, of course, also have a component of Ask Me Anything. I noticed Chelsea has started with the first question, and my word is it a biggie. It says, hi Tom, how are you? I'm pretty good, thank you. I'm very good. Monetization should be returning to YouTube shortly. I've got all the tax things in a row. I've got my accountants all lined up. And they don't think I'm in America anymore, so that's good news. Also, health-wise, pretty damn good. Follows up with, what is happening with Vince? Haven't been keeping up. Well, Chelsea, well, you don't ask small questions, do you? This is going to be a difficult one to explain. So, the best way I can describe it is Vince McMahon has stepped down from his position as chairman and CEO because he's been investigated for a hush payment as a result of an affair that he is accused of having with one of his employees in 2019. He then passed said employee to John Laurinaitis. Allegedly. There's going to be a lot of the word allegedly, let's just say that. Sean says, hello Tom. Hello Sean, how you doing, mate? And Simon says, hey Tom, looking forward to the Sasha news. We're going to be breaking down pretty much everything I know, everything that's out there at the moment as regards Sasha. Sean says, Tom, I believe you know, I know, and everyone in the chat on both streams know that the universal truth is that WWE stands for Walk with Ezekiel. Yes, we all know. Dimitar says, on a break like 2019, perhaps, maybe. There's plenty to talk about, I'll tell you that. Noob says, hello Tom, how are you doing today? Much better, thank you. Much better. And just generally had a good weekend. It was nice and chill. I picked up a little bit of a tan. I'm like browner up here. I'm also wearing a unicorn onesie, but we'll talk about that later. Trevor Leskoski says, will WWE sign Sasha Banks to a new contract? Very, very unlikely at this point in time. Douglas says, I hope Sasha stays in WWE. I kind of hope so too. I like her to be where I'm watching because I'm a fan, but at the same time, It says, forget where is Sasha Banks, but why is Sasha Banks? And he's going to do you on better. How is Sasha Banks? It's an important question, Ed. It's an important question, and only the best ones ask the question. James Stewart says, evening Tom, left field question. Is WWE worried when Roman Reigns decides to take time away? Only seem to have two megastars, other being Brock usable. At this point in time, there are more than two. I think you've, for example, forgotten Seth Rollins there. I think Seth Rollins has to be mentioned when it comes to megastars, but there is certainly concerns around the lack of availability of Roman Reigns. When they put these titles on him, they did not in any way expect that he'd be taking all of this time off, but then he had him over a barrel for a contract because he had both titles. Not the smartest move that the WWE has ever done. And that's the accusation, Chelsea. Yes, that's the accusation. We're being very careful with what we say at this point. Wolfgamer says, hello Wolfgamer. And Simon is celebrating we're going to get Elias and Ezekiel tonight. I don't believe Ezekiel has been announced, but I do know we're going to have Elias back. A beautiful, beautiful moment by everyone involved. Hello Michael, how are you? Razar says, is Ronda scheduled for Money in the Bank? Because she isn't advertised to appear, nor is she advertised for the SmackDown before the pay-per-view. She is advertised to appear. They have already announced that Ronda Rousey versus Natalya will take place at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Hypnosis Bro said, didn't expect a spoiler warning tonight because I didn't see the preview. Glad I checked by mistake. Yeah, the preview did not launch until the last couple of minutes, last half hour or so, because, to be blunt, I've been doing my research as best I can to try and find out how best to explain what is going on right now. KJ says, hello Tom, what's going on? Finally here on time. No work and PT is over, and I'm sure you'll be asked this a million times, but what's up with Mrs. Banks? Just as soon as I catch up, we'll be talking all of that. Welcome, Chauncey, to the show. Glad to have you. Bailey says, hello Tom, what can Stephanie do on her own to make changes that might have an impact with Sasha's negotiations? For example, can she fire Dawn Laurinaitis regardless of how Vince feels? No. Firing comes down to the board. She is not technically a member of the board at this point in time, even though she is the CEO. A member of the board would not be in this particular scenario, for example. At the moment, I do not believe she has any power to fire anyone. She also says, still report by Ringside News. At that point, I'm just going to stop reading. Chelsea says, I'll do you one better. When is Sasha Banks? The one thing nobody's asking is who is Sasha Banks? Dimitar says, apparently Billy Batty says she owns WWE 26 months of her contract. If she's released, she'll owe them money. It's Batty, so I doubt it. It's just a bunch of lies. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's it. In no way is that how contracts work with the WWE. It never has been. Toni Storm, when she left, did not pay a massive payment to pay off the rest of her contract. She was just released. That's how it works. When you sign a contract with the WWE, they don't give you the entirety of your wage for the entirety of the contract as a lump sum immediately. It's absolute garbage from Billy Batty there, as per usual. Kingslander says, where is Sasha? So let's get into it. Sasha Banks and Naomi, as we know, walked out of WWE Raw just about a month ago when they realised the booking plan was to feature a six-pack challenge featuring the two of them. They would be competing against each other for a spot against Bianca Belair at the upcoming Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Now, in the end, for Hell in a Cell, we got Bianca versus Asuka versus Becky. I'm pretty happy with that, but the plan was to have a Asuka versus Becky singles match instead. It's why I've seen a lot of Asuka versus Becky recently. Now, after they left, almost immediately, Sasha Banks instructed her legal team, and this is a legal team that also involves the legal teams of several other people that she is closely connected to examine in detail her contract. She supplied them with that contract to get her out of it. Sasha Banks requested quite clearly the ability to get out of that contract, to be released, to have the contract shut down without a breach of contract. She, as many others, is fully aware that it is not actually a contract of employment because WWE wrestlers are not employees. As such, it should be a contract that a strong legal team can find a way to break through. As of this point in time, I'm not aware that they have, but they are certainly suggesting a number of different options. As of last week, several people in the locker room who have close ties to Sasha Banks are strongly of the opinion that she has been released. However, the WWE are not of the opinion that she has been released. And ultimately at this point, this is the greatest confusion here, because the WWE have not announced that Sasha Banks is released. They have not taken her name off any internal documentation. She is not being removed from payroll. She is still considered by the WWE a member of the WWE locker room, as is Naomi. Now, several different wrestlers are of the opinion that she has been released. A number of people have told me that they heard that from Sasha Banks and people close to her as well. But what I'm hearing a lot of is people close to Sasha telling people close to Sasha, telling people close to Sasha, and suddenly everyone thinks she's actually been released when the WWE simply, they have simply told me it's not true as of right now. Sasha Banks will continue to contest the contract. However, the WWE will continue to not pay her and hold her contract in freeze indefinitely if need be. The WWE, particularly Nick Khan, are of the opinion that they cannot allow a wrestler to have the sort of power over them that Sasha Banks is currently exhibiting. It's a bit of a power play from Nick Khan. Vince McMahon, head of creative, also still holds a hell of a lot of power and has been very vocal about the fact that he does not want to release Sasha Banks. The two of them were very close. This is no longer the case. Sasha Banks is listed internally as a member of the roster. She is not listed internally for the Money in the Bank ladder match, or in fact the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. This has been reported by PWInsider initially, by myself when it comes to the actual Money in the Bank pay-per-view. However, there are advertisements going for Sasha Banks and Naomi to return. This is because the WWE believe that they will be returning. Representatives of Sasha Banks, as I first reported right here, have been in constant communication with the WWE to make it very clear that there are legal ramifications for going live and stating quite clearly, Sasha Banks and Naomi let us all down. Sasha Banks' legal representatives shut that down immediately. Absolutely immediately shut that down, and several assurances were made basically stating, if you ever want her back, you're going to need to do this. The WWE, by and large, has done exactly as requested, and they are of the opinion that Sasha Banks, because of this, will be returning to the fold sooner rather than later. As I continue this Sasha Banks news, please do remember, if you're watching on Twitch, hit follow. You'll get a notification every time we go live. If you're watching on YouTube, where we have 57 people watching right now and only 17 likes, hit that thumbs up and give us a subscribe if you haven't already. We share a lot of news here that you cannot get anywhere else. For example, we were the first to report about Sasha Banks' legal representatives speaking in constant communication with the WWE. A couple of days later, it was reported by Fightful that there has been little to no communication between any representative of Sasha Banks and the WWE. Then, of course, we started to hear plenty shortly afterwards about representatives. So people may forget the incorrect report made by Fightful there, but they'll also probably forget the fact that I did report accurately about it. So if you want the news first, and I don't pretend to be the most well-connected person in the world, but there are certain people around which I tend to have a lot of news, as many people in the chat will tell you, be sure to subscribe and be sure to hit like as well. The future for Naomi is not as tied to Sasha Banks as it may initially seem, and before we get back to Sasha, let's talk about Naomi. The WWE have an even stronger opinion that Naomi will be returning than that Sasha Banks will. First and foremost, even if it is just to wrap up the supposed 2 months remaining of her contract. There have been reports that Naomi and Sasha Banks only have 2 months left. That is not the case, as I've reported previously as regards Sasha, but it may be the case as regards Naomi. And the WWE believe that even if it's just a brief return, they will have Naomi return to the fold, however brief it may be. And if she chooses not to sign a new contract, she will do the favours and go out on her back, as is a tradition in wrestling. As regards Sasha Banks, the WWE are confident she will return. However, they are fully invested and fully involved in this particular conversation, stating that Sasha Banks wishes to be released. Her legal team, essentially since she walked out, have been pursuing all avenues and options. It is not an immediate process. It is an ongoing process. At this point, there is not much else to really say about the fact that Sasha Banks wants out, and the WWE current consider her still a member of their locker room. Simon says it's Ronda versus Natty at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view premium live event coming up in a few weeks. The match got made a few weeks ago. It did indeed. Austin says Raw watch along. There will not be a Raw watch along tonight. I am working tomorrow at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to leave that there and not really pursue it too much. Chelsea says, when is Money in the Bank? It's right at the beginning of July, so it's in about 2 weeks. Let me check the exact date. It is the 3rd. The 2nd. The 2nd of July. It's the 2nd of July. It's a Saturday. It's the 2nd of July. I'm going to double check that because I'm asking myself questions now. Money in the Bank 2022 is Saturday, 2nd of July. Cool. So it's 5 days before my birthday. My birthday, by the way, is on the 7th. That's a Thursday. Sean says, when does Roman lose his titles? I no longer think SummerSlam. To Brock. But if you'll remember, this time last week, we were going into a lot of detail as to what to expect of this year's Money in the Bank pay-per-view. We said a lot, and that may be coming into play soon. Jaden says, hey Tom, any Sasha news? You came in at a very good time, Jaden. Razar says, have any idea why they edited out the Sasha sign from SmackDown? The same reason they edited out Roman Reigns from video packages when he was out during COVID. They just don't want to remind you of who's not there. This is standard WWE. It's nothing out of the ordinary for them. This is what they do. There's nothing special as regards Sasha Banks here. They do this for everyone. Same reason they edited out Dean Ambrose, CM Punk. It's not with an intent to be malicious. They just don't want anybody thinking about people that they don't themselves control. Ross Menzies says, back from Vegas, caught up on earlier Banks update, looking forward to this one. I hope it satisfied, Ross. I hope it did. Chelsea says, do you think this would be a good time for Vince to sell the company, Tom? I don't necessarily know that he can. He can sell his shares, but the company is publicly traded, and he doesn't own enough of it to sell the whole thing. This really needs mentioning more. Bailey says, a follow-up. Who did Dunn and Laurinaitis report to if Vince is out of the leadership structure? They report to the president of the WWE, Nick Khan. As regards actually during shows, they report to the head of creative, Vince McMahon. So even though Vince is out of the business structure, he's still an employee in charge of creative. Kevin Dunn and John Laurinaitis report to creative because they're in charge of talent and presentation. James Stewart says, Drew will take at least one title from Reigns at Clash at the Castle. I'm not entirely sure on that one anymore. Based on what could happen at SummerSlam, I think Roman is more likely to lose the WWE Championship than the Universal Championship. Sean says, Becky wins clean tonight, a screwy finish or a double DQ as a result of Asuka versus Becky. I'm not sure. So I initially thought it'll be a screwy finish till both find their way in, but that's exactly what's just happened with Drew and Sheamus. So I think Asuka is going to win clean tonight, and I think Becky will get in on a last chance opportunity, which certainly helps the possibility that she will be winning. King's Andy, I cannot confirm one way or the other whether Snoop Dogg is involved in Sasha Banks' potential legal challenge against the WWE. I cannot confirm either of those things. Hypnosis Bro says, I'm honestly numb to the Sasha news because every day it's she isn't, now she's gone, but she isn't. I only listen to you because of your correct information about Sasha Banks. I do have a very good record as regards Sasha Banks, even though this is probably as regards Sasha Banks, I've been called a liar more than anything else when it comes to reporting. Though I do of course have a hate thread when I reported that AJ Styles would move to SmackDown in 2020. A hate thread that's still there after AJ Styles moved to SmackDown in 2020. It's funny because they also said I got fired from PW Torch for making things up. I still work for PW Torch. 2 years later, I still work for PW Torch. It's literally complete fake news garbage. And people still cite it as, oh, you shouldn't trust him because of this. You're literally providing evidence of the contrary. You're literally providing evidence that I am trustworthy. You're a ridiculous person. Matthew Brenner says, American law for things like that is sometimes kind of vague or contradictory, so legal teams can put together different cases and hope it's strong enough for a judge to agree. True. Ultimately, this may come down purely to a judge. What I will say is that almost every different... how do I describe this? Yeah, so vagueness in any sort of contract suits the rich person. You don't want it. If any contract is vague, the rich person is the person who will be winning. Make it airtight, make it ironclad, or don't sign it. And for a lot of wrestlers, that means don't sign with WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, many of the indies, Ring of Honor. There's no way you can really sign that doesn't have a really vague and meaningless contract, but we are where we are. Dog says, do you know who is going to play Elias tonight? Yes, Elias himself. Elias will be returning from the dead tonight. We've not seen him in a long time. I'm excited. Dimasar says, is an NDA possible? I don't know what context you're referring to. I don't know what you mean in that regard, but the WWE does have experience with non-disclosure agreements, so we'll see how that goes. King's Andy says, they said they can clone her, so release her then. What a joke. They did not say that. They reportedly said that, according to Andrew Zarian. We do have to put these in context, because that may have been someone's opinion through a filter of a journalist, through filter of further reports. Hello, Moxie. How you doing, mate? Michael says, what a mess. I hate this for her. I absolutely agree. It's an absolute mess. There is no real positive here for anyone involved. Brandon, welcome, mate. Says, hey Tom. Hey mate, how you doing? KJ says, that's good news for me. Hopefully she comes back. Indeed. James Stewart says, acknowledge Tom first, which Moxie is a very fair point. Very fair point. You always demand that I acknowledge you. Where's my acknowledgement? Tom, did you see WWE did Brock versus Roman last man standing match? I don't know who wins. Roman. Or someone who's not in the match already. Jermaine says, hi Tom, what the hell is going on with Sasha Banks? A lot of people are lying. Can you please tell me the truth? I hope you caught that, Jermaine. We went through a lot of different details there. Talked about basically all of the reports and explained Sasha Banks' exact current status. I've just seen King's Andy. That is perfect. Schrodinger's Sasha. Let's call it Schrodinger's Banks. Hashtag Schrodinger's Banks. Oh, that is genius, mate. I love that. Wrestler fan says, hi Tom, will John Cena be performing at SummerSlam? Likely, yes, he will be performing at SummerSlam and will be involved with Austin Theory. Hypnosis Pro says, Tom, do you think we get a winner tonight between Becky and Asuka? I do. I think Asuka will win clean and Becky will find a way in. King's Andy says, is Laurinaitis staying? There may or may not be an announcement impending as regards the status of John Laurinaitis. All I will say in this particular topic is that John Laurinaitis has been named in the investigations currently levied against Vince McMahon. At this point, I will leave that there. Simon says, any chance you think Liv wins Money in the Bank, even if it's a very slight chance? I will give her about a 1 in 16. I suspect it will be big names picking up the win this year, and I suspect we may have already mentioned them in the Money in the Bank preview we did last week. Sai says, hi Tom and all, hope you're all good. If you need reminding that Vince is still heading up creative, look at the SummerSlam main event. You are not wrong. You are not wrong. Moxie says, imagine this, Roman versus Brock happens, Roman wins, Roman comes and says, acknowledge me after the match. Drew comes out and Drew just says, see you at Clash of the Castle, and the show goes off air. Why even have him come out if that's going to be really anticlimactic? Chelsea says, breaking, Snoop Dogg slipped a herbal doggy bag to WWE legal team to help them with the negotiations with Sasha Banks. And just to be clear, if anyone wants to come at me just for saying that, if it's a joke, it's considered fair use. So calm down. Matthew Pickering says, do we know when Sasha Banks will return to WWE? Nope, neither does Sasha, neither does WWE. She may not indeed return at all. Sean says, speaking of AJ Styles, did you see that he was in a video to honour Impact 20th anniversary? I did. I give him credit for that, and of course I do have to give WWE a little bit of credit for that, allowing him to go back in time a little bit, because he was a huge part of Impact. AJ Styles will always be connected to Impact, even though he's coming very close to spending more time in WWE than he did at Impact. But I think we just have to respect a man who went out there and, even in a smaller promotion, made himself a world-class star. Good question, Moxie. I do not know the answer to that. Simon says, Alexa Liv, new tag team, my favourite thing in pro wrestling right now. So excited. Glad you're excited, mate. Looks like we're going to see him for a little while, yeah? So I'm excited for it. Hypnosis Pro says, Seth Rollins should give the sledgehammer to Becky. She might need it to counter the mist tonight. Fair. Nothing counters being spat on like a hammer in the face. Chelsea says, why is Elias coming back and are they stopping Ezekiel? Haven't caught up with the product in a while. No, Elias is coming back because Ezekiel has asked him to come back to prove to Kevin Owens that they are two separate people. They're just brothers. They just need to prove it because Kevin Owens hasn't quite picked up on what's going on yet, and he still seems to think that they're the same person. So Elias is coming back to prove differently. I have recovered, thank you, Moxie. John says, Tom is our tribal chief. Either one? Either one? We the ones. Let's stick with it. KJ says, okay, opinion to a journalist through a filter or whatever you said is honestly a great line. That's so true. I will always keep bringing that up because the amount of times we'll come in and say, this happened. No. Here's the thing. That is someone's opinion. We don't know who it was. So it's a stranger's opinion through the filter of a journalist. That's most of the reports that we're seeing. Stranger's opinion interpreted by a journalist. That's one of the main reasons every journalist at some point gets things wrong. Dimitar says, what I mean is maybe she is released, but neither her or WWE can talk about it for a certain time. Not an impossibility, but not something really worth discussing because there's no way to prove it one way or the other. Freaks of Wrestling podcast says, WWE said Ezekiel will stand side by side with Elias tonight on Raw, and they will. Probably on the Titantron, but they will. Never doubt Ezekiel. Hector Welcome says, Tom, happy Monday. Please explain how WWE fumbled the bag with Taya. She had a killer weekend, has 3 titles from 3 different promotions, such a star, and I'm glad she's succeeding. It's a really good question and a really difficult one to answer because I don't know. Like, you had all the talent in the world right there and you couldn't do anything with it. Of course, the fact that she was released around the same time as John Morrison may have had something to do with it. KJ says, you need to pin that line on your Twitter. Maybe that's a good shout. After all, I am the journalist that usually gets that interpreted through, after all. Jermaine says, do you believe that Seth Rollins wins Money in the Bank and cashes in at SummerSlam by pinning Brock Lesnar during the match this time around, which will be creating Heist of the Century 2? Yes, because I said exactly that during this week's Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure on Saturday just gone. So if you've listened to Nick and Tom's, you will be aware that that is exactly what I believe is going to happen. One more time, one more heist of the century. Absolutely. Sean, you've already asked that and I've already answered it. Brandon says, is Edge going to have one last world title run at least before he retires for good? Still think he should have beat Bryan and Roman at Mania. It was set up perfectly 10 years to the day he retired with the neck. I hope not. Primarily because I think Edge is at a stage of his career where I'd rather see him give back. The use of Finn Balor right now has been him giving back. The use of Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley. I really like what he's been doing since WrestleMania. I enjoyed the match against AJ, and I've really enjoyed everything that has happened since. This is the best incarnation of Edge. But I don't want him anywhere near the top championships. I think he'd be a great US champion, but I'd rather see Damian Priest with the championship again. You know? You get me? You get what I'm saying? I don't want him as a champion. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I think he's got so many good years ahead of him. But I would like to see this as a moderately careful farewell tour. That's what I'd rather see. Wrestler Fan says, are we still getting Rock versus Roman and Ronda versus Becky at WrestleMania 39? We're still getting Ronda versus Becky, that's still the plan. Rock versus Roman is still a massive question mark because The Rock has not been booked for WrestleMania. I've said this a few times, I'll continue to say it. At this point in time, The Rock is not booked for WrestleMania, though I do think the actual WWE Championship match, maybe Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. Just saying. James Stewart says, have Drew Claymore Roman with acknowledge me written on the bottom of his boot. I'll be a smash a zoom and a half. They'll be like doing a freeze frame of his boot in midair, like, oh, it says acknowledge me. Roman didn't even see it. It was too quick. Hypnosis Pro said, I wouldn't mind Sami winning the title from Roman after he tries to cash in on Roman for a year. Pop would be mental. I would also really, really enjoy that. Sami Zayn is very deserving of a top championship. He has not yet won one, though he's won quite a lot in his time. I really do think a championship reign for Sami Zayn could be very, very good. And I think a briefcase reign, much like Big E, would be absolutely perfect. As we continue, please do remember that if you're watching on Twitch, you can hit that follow button. You'll get notifications every single time we go live with a show in the future. We have Spoiler Warning Monday and Friday. We do a live watch party for SmackDown. And on Twitch, we also do gaming shows on Sunday at 1 p.m. Over on the YouTube side, we currently have 52 viewers and only 24 likes, so if you're able to, please remember to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. As soon as we have more Sasha Banks news, it will be here. It will not be on Twitter, it will not be on any websites, it will be here on the YouTube and the Twitch, so make sure you're following one of them. Simon said, also so excited for Cowboy Babyface Brock returns, even though we very unfortunately get Brock versus Roman Part 9000. Still excited for the match regardless. I'm not excited for the match. The fact that we've had, from SummerSlam last year to SummerSlam this year, Roman and Brock, I'm bored of it. Ethan, welcome. Says, hey Tom, quick question. Does WWE release a statement when someone gets released because everyone thinks she's been released? Well, everyone doesn't think that. The WWE don't think that. And no, there has been no statement so far. I wanted to have a quick chat with you guys. Just before I continue with all the questions, and I will continue with all the questions, but I wanted to have a quick chat with you guys. We're coming up quite close to my birthday in just over 2 weeks. And I'll be putting together a birthday party like I did last year. Last year, the birthday party had myself and about 8 people, and that was great. We had a 45-minute birthday. I spoke about things, a lot of people wished me happy birthday, I ate a bit of cake, and that was it, and it was great. And I want to do the same thing this year. But before I continue, I do want to say something really quite simple. There is a wonderful, wonderful thing about the YouTube, about the Twitch, about everything we've been doing for the last year and a half. Let's pick an example. A couple of days ago, I wore a shirt with lemons on it, and you guys fucking loved it. And I thought, this shirt is ridiculous, and that's why I like it. When I was 16, I had similar loud, bright shirts, and people hated them. Because people are dicks. But people hated them. Now, of course, I come in here wearing a ridiculous shirt and feeling good about it, and I'm bombarded with other people looking at my ridiculous shirt and feeling good about it. So yeah, I'm wearing a unicorn onesie. I'm doing it. Not only that, but this unicorn onesie, if I can find it, has a tail. Because we live in a ridiculous world, and I am a ridiculous person. The acceptance that I get from you guys is magnificent. I just wanted to say that. That I am so happy and so proud of what we've been able to create and what you guys have given me, whether you've been here for 18 months or 1 month or even a day. It is amazing, and I'm so grateful because we've been through some bad times. And now we're going through some really good ones. Some really good ones. So I just wanted to say thank you. And now I'll continue with the questions and the like. So thank you. King Xander says, I've come to the realization that in the last 2-3 years that I'm actually a Sasha fan and of some others rather than a wrestling fan. The whole industry just feels meh to me now. There are a few people who think like that, and Sasha seems to be one that really catches the attention. I kind of get it. Growing up, I was an X-Pac and Kane fan. I then became a Triple H fan. When I came back to wrestling in 2014, I was a Bray Wyatt fan. If not for Bray Wyatt, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. Sean says, if Liv Morgan doesn't win Money in the Bank, when do you see her getting another big win on her resume? Quite possibly a title win or a Rumble win in 2023. I see the next win being a Tag Team Championship win, but I do think she will be a champion next year. Wolfgamer says, AJ Styles is an Impact OG. He really is. Dog says, can we get Elias and Zeke versus the Usos, a brother versus brother match at SummerSlam? I hope so. I also really hope that they're not messing around and that we actually do find out they're actually twins. It would be so awkward and so beautiful, and the crowd would just lose their mind. It would be fantastic. Hypnosis Bro says, Elias' theme was a bop. Unfortunately, he passed, but I'm glad they brought him back to life. Yeah, I suspect he's kind of the Undertaker at the minute, but the WWE found the formula to eternal life a long time ago. KJ says, put it on a t-shirt. Maybe, mate. The spoiler warning t-shirts are the next job. Sai, if you're still here, the spoiler warning t-shirts could be next up. Basically just the spoiler warning design that we've got there on a t-shirt would be magnificent. Does anyone disagree with that, or does anyone agree with that? Like, we've looked at some spoiler warning designs, but I'm really happy with what Sai has created for me here, for us. So if this is the sort of thing you wouldn't mind having on a t-shirt, you let me know, because we can make that happen. Ethan says, definitely going to be Damien Sandow dressed up as Elias. I wouldn't hate it. Andrew Quinn says, hello Tom, hope you've had a great day. Thank you. Just watching the classic X-Men movie, The Last Stand on Disney+. Okay. Was Last Stand the second one? Was it the second one or the third one? Was it Dark Phoenix or not? KJ says, Ty, in my opinion, was perfect for WWE. Her being in NXT 2.0 may have screwed her. I think she was perfect for NXT 2.0. Sai says, wouldn't it be great if Elias legitimately had a twin? Yes. Nobody knew Kurt Angle had one until he showed up in a match. I remember that. It was awkward and brilliant and so fun. And please give me more. Simon says, Vince said Sasha was irreplaceable in her Chronicle WWE Network documentary back when she returned in 2019. Yep, he did say that. He still believes that. He still does. Dog says, so tired of hearing the Rock versus Roman rumour every year. Has been for the last 4 years. Razar says, with Brock Roman already announced and the rumoured Becky Bianca match and possibly Charlotte Ronda SummerSlam is looking like WrestleMania Part 2. Do you think they change any of these? No. I think Becky Bianca possibly gets changed, but I don't know who it would actually be at this point. Like, is it just going to be another Rhea match? Because I prefer that. Andrew Quinn says, I'm hoping for a Brood reunion of Christian and Gangrel after Christian turned heel on Jungle Boy, Brood versus Jungle Express. I don't know if Gangrel still actually wrestles. Let me know if I'm missing something there and if he's already wrestled, but I don't know if that's the case. Brandon says, yeah, I get you, Tom. Regardless, I'm just glad we got Edge back at least. Doesn't need the titles for me to appreciate him actually being back. I think he's done fantastic since he returned. I'm really enjoying this latest run. I really loved his feud with Seth. I didn't mind his work with Roman. I think he went to the top a bit too soon. I more enjoyed his work with Daniel Bryan, for example. So I'm really enjoying his work. Joey says, I honestly don't want to see Brock and Roman again. So over it. I'd rather see AJ Styles or Bobby Lashley face Roman at SummerSlam. I do think they're saving Bobby Lashley for Saudi Arabia. AJ Styles, however, they should be considering, because right now AJ Styles doesn't really have a storyline. Matthew says, let's hope Sasha Banks returns to the WWE. I hope wherever she goes, she's happy. That's the main thing for me. Hypnosis Bro says, what's a better cheap pop? Insert local town, acknowledge me, or welcome to insert brand here. Local town. The best cheap pop, as Vince McMahon has proven, is local sports team. Just mention them. Sean says, who do you think beats Bianca for her title? Rhea, but not yet. Sean says, Chris Evans said he'd like to return to the MCU as Human Torch. Well, he did go there. He did go there. Personally, I'd most like to see him return to Scott Pilgrim. I think that should be the return that everyone really wants to see. Hector says, Tom, did you see the ratings for the last Dynamite were released? At what point would Turner have questions about ratings, considering this hardcore fan approach isn't really showing results? It'll be a while before any actual questions are asked, because they have been exceeding expectations for a long time. However, they are not exceeding expectations anymore. So at some point soon, they're going to start wondering how they can get those numbers back up, and we're going to have to start seeing recaps. Steve, welcome, says, Colohue, how are you doing, sir? My question today is asking, what wrestling theme song would you sing in a karaoke bar? Asuka. 100% Asuka's theme. I would 100% go to town on that. Absolutely go to town singing that. Failing that, my actual personal favourite theme of all time in wrestling, It's My Time. The Triple H theme. Where he spat on everyone. It's my time. Sean says, if Cody Rhodes hadn't gotten injured, would he have gotten the match with Roman at SummerSlam? No, the plan for the match at SummerSlam was Roman versus Randy Orton. Randy Orton now not available. We get some response now, some reaction to the Unicorn onesie. Ed says, it's so fluffy. It's so fluffy, I'm gonna die. I love that quote, thank you very much. Hypnosis Pro says, Unicorn Tom is an honorary member of the New Day. Big Tomo. Big T in action. Dog says, New Day would be proud of you. KJ says, I went downstairs for 2 minutes. Tom got attacked by the New Day. And Brandon says, where are your bootios? Well, I did stand up and show you all my tail. Simon says, a very interesting stat. It's 6 years to the day yesterday. History was made and all 3 of S.H.I.E.L.D. members were WWE World Heavyweight Champion in the very same night. I remember watching that show live and thinking it was absolutely magnificent. They were branding it as the best Money in the Bank of all time, trying to get rid of the idea of 2013 Money in the Bank, and yet they actually kind of succeeded. Hypnosis Pro says, Brock versus Roman is met at this point. Who would Brock face at SummerSlam in case Orton was able to wrestle Roman? I don't know, to be blunt. I have not looked into this too much. I still want him to be facing off against Sheamus. My suspicion is that he would have been taking on Drew McIntyre. Steve says, mate, you always got to do you. Rock that onesie in a loud shirt. You've always got my support, buddy. Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. In a world where people jump on Twitter and send DMs to basically anyone who supports me saying, shouldn't support that guy, it's always nice seeing that some people actually pay attention to what's going on and actually stand by people who stand by them. There's so many of you in here, so thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone. Simon says, your thoughts on Christian Cage's long-awaited heel turn? Well, it was kind of necessary. He wasn't that interesting. Razar says, do you think they start the tag team title tournament anytime soon? Maybe crown new champs at SummerSlam? Possibly, yes. They are sort of reshuffling at the moment. The initial plan was to have 4 teams. The injury to Zelina Vega has kind of put an end to that. But now that they've paired up Alexa and Liv, there are options available. D. Freeman, welcome, says, wearing the unicorn onesie with so much confidence. It makes it great and bring out a pop for me. I mean, it's a work of art. It's a work of art, you know? The ears shake and everything. How can you not be confident in this? Sean says, Kevin will go nuts when he finds out Elias and Ezekiel are different people. I would love it. This never happens, but I would absolutely love it if we got Elias and Ezekiel on the stage and then Kevin Owens goes, what? Okay. I'm sorry. You're right. That's fair. Point proven. I'm sorry. You never hear the word sorry in WWE. I have not seen Slammiversary, Simon. I do not regularly watch Impact, so I have not seen it and I can't have thoughts on it on that basis. Joey says, is there any more main roster talent going to get moved down to NXT? Possibly, if they don't have plans for them. I unfortunately would be looking at Shayna. Sean said, Last Stand was the third one. King's Andy follows up. Last Stand is the third film of the original cast. Awful. It wasn't great. Sai said, I'm down for knocking up a t-shirt. We'll send you some ideas. Thank you, Sai. Appreciate that. I do actually have a merch store. I've just not got anything in it. So if people are interested, by all means, let's make that happen. Michael says, has Sasha and WWE had any direct communication? I wonder if at some point Vince would want to meet with her. Vince definitely wanted to meet with her. However, to my knowledge, there has been no direct communication. Everything has taken place via representatives. So when Fightful put the report out saying there being little to no communication, that was not the case. KJ says, imagine how big it would be if next year's Mania had Rock versus Roman, possibly without a title, Seth as champion versus Cody, Becky versus Ronda. Would be a hell of a story, tell you that. They do, after all, have to make 2 nights seem compelling because it'll be a 2-night WrestleMania again. And with Becky versus Ronda as the main event of night 1 and Seth versus Cody as main event of night 2, I'd be pretty happy with that. It's probably going to be Roman. But what if it wasn't? Simon says, any news on MJF's upcoming return or Hollywood aspirations? Not as of yet. There are still strong work elements at play. They are working out a deal that suits everyone. Gnosis Pro says, what's your favourite wrestling move ever? Mine is the rock bottom. Very, very good question. I did always love a choke slam. For me, growing up, the choke slam was it. I loved everything Kane did. And for me, choke slam was just what I used in the playground. It was my finisher in the playground, you know? Like, I was referee more often than not, but that was my finisher in the playground. Lately, though, that has been replaced by what I think is just a very, very cool move from someone who has a really interesting, diverse, and unique moveset. I really like the End of Days. I'm still furious now that Drew McIntyre kicked out of it. Still furious. The End of Days for me, beautiful. That said, I also have a bit of a soft spot for the Blade Runner that Switchblade Jay White uses in all its incarnations. Wolf Gamer says, has anyone seen the G1 Climax block release yet? I feel bad for Okada because goddamn, I've not seen the block release. I did not know that they had done that yet. Let's find out. Let's have a read out because, as you guys know, I'm a G1 fan. And I've seen the names, but I haven't seen the blocks. G1 Climax 2022 blocks. Let's have a look. Wrestling Inc. comes up first. Sportster comes up second, apparently. Damn, Okada. Ew. So, A block is Lance Archer, Bad Luck Fale, Toru Yano, Jeff Cobb, Jonah, Filthy Tom Lawler, and Kazuchika Okada. Toru Yano has a lot of new and interesting people to work with. I love Toru Yano, as many of you know. He's my second favourite after JY. But Okada's not going to get any match of the year contenders out of that. Jeff Cobb, maybe. But that's about as far as he go. B block is Jay White, Tama Tonga, Tomohiro Ishii, Tai Chi, Great-O-Khan, Chase Owens, and Sonata. That's the block. That is the block right there. Oh, that's going to be good. Jay White and Tomohiro Ishii have history as well. C block is Tetsuya Naito, Zack Sabre Jr., Kenta, Evil, Goto, Aaron Hanare, Hiroshi Tanahashi. That also a very fun block. I don't know who Aaron Hanare is, I've got to be honest. But Tanahashi, Goto, Evil, Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., Tetsuya Naito. That's good stuff. Then D block is Will Ospreay, El Phantasmo, Juice Robinson, Dave Finlay, Yujiro Takahashi, who if you don't know is all of the Tokyo Pimps, Yoshihashi and Shingo Takagi. Ospreay and Shingo together again. Together again. You know that we'll be together again. I'm excited for it. I really am. Justin says, will Alexa and Liv actually be a team, or is this just to kill time until Money in the Bank? A little from column A, a little from column B. Hypnosis Process Forbidden Door looks like a reject pay-per-view, not as interesting as I was expecting. I'm excited by a lot of these matches. The fact that we're getting John Moxley versus Tanahashi, that should be fun, but it's a bit ace versus ace, whereas I'd rather see John Moxley versus Jay White. Again. Doug says, we need a Gunter versus Roman for the title at some point. I wholeheartedly agree. Andrew Quinn says, I'm hoping for more X-Men movies to be made. I've got loads of Marvel comics at home and posters. An interesting fact, a former Marvel comic book person came to my school in year 7 in my art lesson. That's cool. That's very cool. I'm definitely an X-Men film fan. I think they've done really good with it. First Class as a reinvention was very good as well. I did watch Dark Phoenix recently. It was not good. But there's still a lot of good stuff recently that they've done. Also, I think the best work in the entire X-Men cinematic universe is Logan. And that was an amazing film. So he says, personally I'd like to see more of Cowboy Brock and Sami Zayn. Better yet, they're configuring Kevin Owens. Wise ass Brock getting under KO skin would have a lot of mileage. I would love it if Roman sent Sami Zayn to interfere and just block Brock Lesnar off. I'd like that. It would end terribly. I'd love it. Wiggly, how you doing, mate? Johnny Mendes says, hi Tom, how you doing? Just joined the stream. I feel like we're gearing up for a repeat of WrestleMania 31 at SummerSlam with Seth cashing in. Is this possible at all? Yep. If you've watched last week's video on Money in the Bank, you'll know where we're headed. Brandon says, do you think post Money in the Bank we could see Sheamus go babyface / tweener to take on Gunter, as he'd be a legit threat to his IC title? I don't necessarily think he'll go tweener. I think he'll be heel and Gunter will go tweener for a little while. But I need that match. I need it. Pardon me. And then at some point I need Gunter versus Drew McIntyre. I just need it. Justin says, my prediction is Owens interrupts Elias and chases Jim backstage, where Ezekiel is waiting. It works for me. Definitely the right combination as well, because Ezekiel would have to take off a beard. Simon says, maybe Steph can maybe talk her around. Stephanie McMahon has no involvement in the Sasha Banks situation. King Xander says, based on Naomi's Instagram post today, doesn't seem like she wants a return either. Very fair comment. Simon says, are you watching the new Game of Thrones prequel? Maybe. I enjoyed Game of Thrones to an extent. We'll see how it goes. But a lot of people really loved the first 3 or 4 seasons before it got more action heavy. I really didn't. I really liked season 5, season 6, season 7. And like up to oh god, where was it? Where is it they live in the north? Where is it they actually live? Oh god. The fight there, where there was dragons and there was White Walkers, and that episode was just glorious. They should have dealt with Cersei beforehand. King Xander says, Sasha and Naomi, Winterfell. Winterfell? I'm going to say Winterfell. That may be Destiny in my head. King Xander says, Sasha and Naomi are both on my Mount Rushmore. Never thought this was going to be how it would end. I agree. Thank you, King Xander. It was indeed Winterfell. Brilliant. D. Freeman says, in your opinion, what will be the biggest WrestleMania match for Cody this year? Roman versus Cody or the fourth match with Cody versus Seth? I would go with Cody versus Seth one more time, and yes, with Cody winning it again. Because of the injury, because of the attack, because of the handshakes. Twice now we've seen that handshake and it's been turned around. I think that would be the ideal match for Cody's return. Spider-Boss says, hi Tom, sorry for being late. What happened with Sasha Banks? We're in the last 10 minutes now, Spider-Boss. I am going to have to ask you to jet back in the video and catch up, because it would take more than 10 minutes to go through it again, and I still have questions to go through, so I'm just not going to have time to reiterate at this point. Ross says, any update on Moxley signing a new deal for AEW? Being on holiday, only watch Dynamite occasionally, so I might have missed something. I believe that Jon Moxley has signed a new contract, and it will be announced after Forbidden Door when he wins the interim AEW Championship. I believe, that is my personal opinion. There is no update at this point in time. I believe it has been the case. Sean says, if Ronda holds the title until May 23rd, 2023, she'll pass Bayley as longest reigning SmackDown Women's Champion. Do you think Ronda reigns that long? I do not believe so, no. I think the longest she goes is WrestleMania next year. Jermaine says, hey Tom, do you think Becky Lynch wins Money in the Bank and has a failed cash-in? Yes and no. So, if you've watched the Money in the Bank video, I do believe the likely winners, spoiler warning, are Sasha Banks and Seth Rollins. With this in mind, I believe that did I say Sasha Banks? Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. With this in mind, I believe that Becky Lynch will win the briefcase and cash in on Ronda Rousey. Not Bianca Belair, Ronda Rousey. She will take the SmackDown Championship. Just like that, she'll hop over to SmackDown, hugely bolster that division. Or Ronda Rousey's going to have to come chasing. Either way, I think that's how we get to their WrestleMania match. Sean says, do you see Moxley losing the GCW to Blake Christian? No. No, I don't. Simon says, Tom, was your pro wrestling Mount Rushmore your personal faves? Mine are Sasha, Punk, Austin, Lita. Hard to say because there's so much change recently. I know Triple H is on there, for example. Triple H has always been my guy. I know Becky Lynch is on there. I think Seth Rollins is on there, and I think Roman Reigns is on there. I think that's it for me at this point in time. I just really like Seth. I really like Roman, always have. Becky Lynch has been sort of what I connected with for a long time. I was predicting she'd win the first Royal Rumble, the first Money in the Bank, all the way until she actually started doing so, but Triple H has always been my guy. I'm good, thank you. Hope you're well as well. Spider-Boss says, is still Becky Lynch the big favourite for the match? Yup. Sid says, I do not watch the product regularly. Is Gunther getting over with the casual audience as much as he is with the diehard fans? I do believe he is. I don't think he's selling a lot of merch at this point in time. I don't know if he has merch per se, but the fans in arenas are getting very excited whenever he's in the arena, and that is really all they're looking for. Johnny Mendez said, did you see Fightful reporting the championships are still separate and there's a chance they will be split? I feel you reported this a month ago. Spoiler warning for the win. Indeed, Johnny, I did report that a while ago, but of course, because certain people have called me a liar in the past, even though they've been proven wrong, people won't come to these channels because, Fightful now get credit for that report. They get sole credit for that report, and they get to say that they broke the news. Quick question for you though, Johnny. Is that Fightful or Fightful Select? Have they put that behind a paywall when it's already been reported right here? Much like news on Sasha, news on Sonya, news on Cody. So many things. News on Ronda, news on CM Punk. News that was here in spoiler warning well before it was there. Free and no paywall. AMC says, by the way, I want Universal Champion Brock Lesnar to be gone soon at SummerSlam. Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Well, he will be gone for a little while, at least until closer to the time. Simon says, you think Sasha Mercedes double dips like Punk in Hollywood in Heels TV show? AW do both if she requires her release from the WWE. If she requires her release, I suspect she will go Hollywood. If she does then join a new wrestling company, that will be part of the deal, I'm sure. Adam Creeks Creekmore says, is WWE still building up a match between John Cena and Theory at SummerSlam? Yes, and John Cena will not be winning. Thomas Phipps says, who do you think will beat Ronda? Becky Lynch via cash-in. Razar says, is there anyone WWE is currently interested in bringing to the main roster soon from NXT? Bron Breakker? Breakker is the 100%. That's the one. They also want Io Shirai, and I still don't know why they haven't done it yet. I'm still trying to find out more, but that is probably the most best-kept secret in WWE. Sylvia, where's your information from? Where is your information from, Sylvia? Let's show me a source on this, please. Because, yeah, you're going to need to give me a source on that. Well, KJ, I'm going to be entirely blunt here. About 2/3 of the things I learn about backstage in wrestling, I don't report. Because either I can't find multiple sources, or I don't trust it. There's also things which I have ironclad, but I know 100% if I reported it, what they would be is a whole world of mockery, and then when it happened 3 or 4 months in future, nobody would remember that I'd reported it. They would just, in the moment, be on the attack and go for the jugular. The big names don't have my back. Okay? For example, when Raj Giri reported that Sasha Banks had been released, a lot of people had his back. A lot of people said, even if this is incorrect, we have his back. People do get things wrong. If I reported that, do you think people would have my back? Do you think people ever have my back? Spider-Boss, the reason he is reporting that is because he believes it to be true. Thomas Phipps says, how do you think WWE are going to do Ezekiel and Elias tonight? I don't know, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? Part of the fun. Thank you, Johnny, clarifying that the report was Fightful Select behind the paywall. Once again, I'd just like to repeat, there are 35 people currently watching on YouTube. We have 1,204 subscribers. Be sure to subscribe. You're not going to get this news anywhere else. But there's a hell of a lot of real good stuff. Real good stuff. Adam Creekmore says, is Riddle and Randy Orton still going to be RK Bro when he returns? That is the plan, yes. That is the plan. Ross says, definitely Tom, you did report a month ago regarding both titles being separate. Roman can't face himself at Survivor Series. I did indeed, that's it. That's the report. I also reported that they were making it up as they went along. A couple of days later, Andrew Zarian reported that, Matt Men podcast. Andrew Zarian, of course, gets the applause from the big names because the big names have his back, and so on and so forth. Yes, Ed, thank you. Io is currently injured, but there's been plenty of times that she hasn't been injured and looks destined for the main roster and it hasn't happened. So, there's a lot going on. Lots going on. Yeah, as Sean says, maybe Io will be called up once she's recovered from her injury. Sylvia, Wrestling Realty YouTube channel is not a credible source. Not a credible source. Ed saying, I have written proof that would not be the case if you reported it, Tom. Yep, you have written proof that people do not have my back. Apart from the people right here. Apart from people like yourself, Ed. Like so many others who drop in and say hi and chat along. Apart from any of that. You guys who drop in here, earlier on I put the hood up and I spoke about how much you've meant to me and how amazing it's been to have your support. So the big hitters in wrestling media might not care about me, but I care about you guys because you've got my back. So I've got yours. Spider-Boss says, it's always hard to know news from Sasha since she doesn't talk to the media. Very true. Thomas Phipps says, when it's Survivor Series, it is going to be... Could you clarify a little bit there, Ed? Thank you. What am I saying? Survivor Series is going to be in November. It's always in November, around about a WrestleMania weekend. That's the plan. Thank you, Ed. I was going to start doing that myself. Going to be blunt. If you come in here and 1, you don't source your information, and 2, your information is bullshit, I'm going to be deleting your messages. Or Ed is. Or Sai is. Ed's just fact-checked you. Ed's just fact-checked you. Oh, I love you guys. Simon says, Carmella is apparently back tonight on Raw after a few weeks. Fightful Select reports earlier today. That's just a spoiler at this point. Just a spoiler. But yeah. Carmella will be back. Zelina Vega still injured, but Carmella can still wrestle. Yep, Sean. Pretty dumb. That name is pretty dumb. And Simon says, Io did have a walking boot on her foot a while back. She did. She is injured. We'll see her come back when she's ready. Gotcha. Ed clarifies, Wrestling Reality YouTube, the claimed source of those released claims, isn't reporting that. It's a 2-second clip channel that can avoid copyright by using 1 to 2 second clips. So what we had was a liar. Ed has fact-checked. Ed has proven you wrong. So, job done. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Not sure, Sean. I haven't read the Fightful report. I don't have Fightful Select. I don't pay for news. D. Freeman says, I know the bigwigs don't have your back, but are there some who have your back? Don't the Torch have your back? The Torch do have my back. Wade Keller, one of the biggest names in pro wrestling, he has my back. And I really appreciate that. There are plenty more who maybe aren't the biggest names in the world, but are still good people. Still good people. And I will value them till the end of time. And on that note, we are going to wrap up here with one final thing. Just to be clear, by Friday, I expect the YouTube channel to be monetized again. Which means that when it comes to Money in the Bank, to SummerSlam, the big shows where we get 3,000-4,000 views, let's just say it should be a very, very good day for Tom Colohue. In the meantime, just want to say a massive thanks to everyone for joining me. I've absolutely loved it. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. I'll see you all very soon.